What is going on, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting video on this channel. As today, guys, we're going to be starting a brand new series on the channel, and that is Yugioh Zexal episode reviews, or what I'm going to probably be calling it since I'm going to be doing the sub version, Yugioh Zexal episode reviews. Now, before we actually get into the actual episode review, I want to kind of quickly explain why I'm doing this, because prior to any other videos that I've done in a channel so far, I've made no mention of this whatsoever. This is just something that's come out of the blue, and I kind of want to quickly explain why I'm doing this. The biggest reason as to why I'm doing this is because of all the legacy support that we've gotten, from Rise of the Duelist to the current set that's going to be released, Burst of Destiny, or for the TCG, Dawn of Majesty. And with all of the legacy support for the older shows, I thought, you know what, let's go back to one of the old shows and do a review series on it, since the current show Yugioh Zexal is the only series that I'm doing reviews on. So I think for some variety's sake, I feel like it would be good to go back to one of the old shows and actually do a review series on it. So after kind of scouring a little bit and doing a little bit of research, I decided to start off with Yugioh Zexal, as I feel like it's one of the most support that we've gotten for the legacy support so far, with the one that I think has the most is Arc 5, as Arc 5 had 6 characters that ended up getting support, while I think Zexal only had technically 3, but it had a lot of Utopia support as well. In fact, Utopia made 3 cover sets, one for Lightning Overdrive, one for Animation Chronicles 2021, and one for the Overlay Universe Structure deck. But I decided to lean more towards Zexal for 3 reasons. One, because of the fact that Yugioh Zexal is the last world in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links mobile game. As you guys know, if you play Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, normally they have worlds based off the anime series, and the last one to be released was the Yugioh Zexal world. Now, I heard about the rumors about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 world potentially coming, with the codes that were leaked about pendulum summoning coming to the game, but since it was not released and Zexal is currently the only last one to be released, I feel like that was still a viable option. The second one being with the figurines that were announced. Obviously, we got the announcement of Yuma, Astral, Rainbow Karibo, and Tori getting figurines for the Yugioh Zexal representation, since it was the only series besides Arc 5 that didn't get any figurine support, so I felt like that was a good reason. And the third and final reason, because I forgot this even happened, back in April, Yugioh Zexal celebrated 10 years since its release, and I forgot that Yugioh Zexal has been out for 10 years now. I still cannot believe it that Yugioh Zexal has been out for 10 years now. So what better way to do the 10-year anniversary well by doing a Yugioh Zexal episode review series. Now, yes, I know I'm a little bit late since this happened back in April, but hey, you know what? It's better late than ever, right? So, with all of that stuff out of the way, that is the reason why I'm going to be doing Yugioh Zexal episode reviews. Don't worry, we'll get into the other Yu-Gi-Oh shows later on, but I'm just going to be doing one at a time, since I don't want to kind of crowd this channel with the other ones, especially since there's other content that I want to do on this channel. So, I feel like just doing one review series is completely fine. So, with all of that out of the way, I know this is a long intro, but I kind of want to explain it since it was out of the blue. Now, let's finally get into the first episode review of Yugioh Zexal. So, without further ado, or Yugioh Zexal, excuse me. So, without further ado, guys, let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on the first episode of Yugioh Zexal? I liked the episode. I thought it was a good way to start off Yugioh Zexal. The episode starts off with introducing our new protagonist, Yuma Tsukumo, and we see him very weirdly walking down this narrow path, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's pitch black. You can't really see anything other than the path, and he's just walking down this narrow path, and he ends up running into this very creepy and ominous looking door thing with a face, and basically it actually ends up talking and tells Yuma whoever can open this door will gain a great new power. However, in gaining this new power, you will lose something that is most valiant to you. And Yuma gets a little bit shocked about this, saying, you know, what's most important to me, and he kind of gets a little bit nervous about this. You kind of see him stepping back a little bit, and the floor collapses behind him, and Yuma just seemingly falls into the abyss. And that was very surprising. And this was like the first like minute of the show, and this already happened, but something like this ended up happening. But we end up finding out it was a dream that Yuma ended up having. He ended up falling out of his little hammock bed looking thing, and basically reminisces about the dream very briefly before realizing that he was going to be late for school. So basically you had the whole montage of him basically coming out of his room, getting changed. You kind of get introduced to his sister. I can't really remember her name on the top of my head, but we get introduced to her. She seems to be a news reporter. She's kind of talking to her boss about a new story that she has, and she's kind of working on it. And Yuma goes down the stairs and starts yelling at her, asking why she didn't wake him up. But basically she says, "You're old enough, you can wake yourself up. You need to start doing it yourself." And Yuma ends up making a face at her because, you know, he was still kind of mad about the situation. He ends up starting to leave the house. His grandmother basically asks him, "Hey, did you eat breakfast yet?" And Yuma said, "I didn't have any time right now. I need to get to school." And this is one of my favorite scenes. Literally, she starts spinning the broom, catches Yuma by the collar, and forces him to go back into the house and to get some breakfast, whether it's to go or whether he was going to in the house. She basically forced him to have to get breakfast, which that should just be grandmother of the day. Like, she should get an honorable mention for that, because holy crap, was that scene funny as all it can be. But the fact of the matter is that she cared about her grandson that much to make sure that he got food. I mean, she's an MVP grandmother. I mean, come on. She's making sure that she's going to take care of her grandson. So basically, Yuma ends up going back in the house. He grabs some food. He's running to school, and he runs into another character named Tetsu, which assumingly they're friends with each other. I mean, it seems like they also kind of have a bit of rivalry, as basically Tetsu asks him, "Hey, you know what? How about we race to the school right now?" And Yuma basically gulps down his food and says, "Okay, let's race down to the school." And Yuma, trying to beat this kid on a skateboard, is ended up being stopped as Tetsu gets ahead of him and is able to kick one of the garbage robots and makes Yuma end up tripping over it, spilling his deck. And then you have a comedic scene of Yuma yelling at the robots because they're calling his deck garbage. And then we get introduced to another character, Kotori, as she was kind of on one of the sky lifts talking to one of her friends, and one of her friends mentioned, "Hey, isn't that Yuma Sukuma down there?" And Kotori basically responds, "I have no idea. I really don't know who that kid is. I can't really make out who the kid was, but she knows it's Yuma down there." But she is very embarrassed by the whole situation that he's arguing to robots about his deck. So yeah, she's kind of a little bit embarrassed by this, showing us that she has known Yuma for a while, at least from what that scene showed us. So we basically now get to the school, and it's very interesting as you see Yuma getting challenged twice during this episode. One to jump 20 hurdles in one go, which, by the way, for what they showed us in this episode, unless this kid can run up the wall and basically being able to climb over it and like fall into something very soft, this kid either is going to be able to get over it and break his ankles when he falls down, or like he does in this episode, he's going to completely biff it because it seems impossible to do that. And obviously it was. He ends up crashing into the entire set of block looking things, and everyone's making fun of him, and they're all laughing at him. Kotori's just kind of shaking her head and like, "Why are you doing this? Like, come on." And the other thing is a little bit more of a reasonable thing, but maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, as Yuma was challenged to go and do an entire lap underwater without having to come back up for air. And Tori is cheering him on, you know, he's trying to give him a little bit of motivation, or Kotori, sorry, I'm so used to the dub and calling her Tori as that's her dumb name. And Tetsu basically tells him that, or tells her that there is no way he's going to be able to do this. Like, there's just no way that this kid is going to do it. And Yuma does very well. He's able to get to the end, and it seems like he's coming back. Unfortunately, he's an idiot and decides to open his mouth, which basically forces him to have to come back up and actually get some air, with also getting water built into him because he opened his mouth. And you even kind of see him spitting out the water because of that, and everyone is just basically laughing at him about the whole situation. Then we get into actual class, and we're seeing everyone. I think they're learning math or something like that. Everyone's on their D-pads, which is what the dual disc is in this show. They're basically working on their schoolwork, and Katori basically asks Yuma, since they sit right next to each other, why do you do this stuff? Why do you do these insane challenges even though they're impossible? I mean, the fact that he tried to jump a 20 hurdle thing, it was very weird, because why would you do that? That's completely impossible. And why would you do the whole thing where you would go underwater and try to do an entire lap without coming up for air? Why are you doing this? And Yuma basically responds, because I like the challenge. I like being challenged. Even if it is impossible, I want to basically bring it to them. I want to show them my Kata Bingo spirit, which is basically Yuma's entire gimmick throughout this show. So it's kind of interesting. Basically, Kata Bingo is basically his inner spirit of being able to do anything. And that's basically what this whole entire thing is that even though the challenges are impossible, I still want to try to overcome those challenges, even if it is impossible. That's basically his entire personality in just this one episode, which I really did like. It kind of sums up Yuma quite a bit in the first episode, as he's this kid that likes to strive to be the best. He wants to try to overcome any challenge that comes above him. And basically he starts to mention with this pendant that I was given to thanks to my parents, as we do kind of learn that his parents ended up giving him this very bizarre looking pendant, and basically he's kept this on for who knows how long. We don't really know how long he's really had the pendant for, but basically he says, as long as I have this pendant, I basically can do anything. This is basically what makes me motivated to do all these seemingly impossible challenges. And I will say this is one of these scenes that I really do like, especially when we get a little bit later into the episode. But after a little bit of a banter with the teacher after he screamed Kata Bingo in the middle of class, they basically go out to the courtyard, and this is where we see the dueling action end up happening, as all the kids are basically outside now, and they end up getting their duel discs ready, and they end up having a dueling class. And Yuma gets very excited about this. This is his favorite class out of the entire school. You see him end up putting on this weird device, which is a AR vision scanner, which basically makes it to where all of the monsters seem realistic. You even see one of the monsters crashing into a building and then flying right above them. So basically with this AR system, it basically makes all the monsters seem real. And him and Katori are basically walking through the courtyard. Yuma's trying to find an opponent. Katori makes a pretty funny statement, kind of making, or I wouldn't say making fun of him, but kind of doing a little bit of joke of bringing it to them. And Yuma kind of seems like he's a little bit offended by this, and then we hear a big old explosion seemingly out of nowhere, and Yuma and Katori actually decide to investigate the whole entire situation, and they end up running into Tetsu, where we find out that he's actually dueling up against Shark, which is known to be a very strong duelist, a duelist that has actually made it to the nationals. And we can see this as this kid ends up pulling off an Xyz summon, which is the first time we ever see an Xyz summon in any Yu-Gi-Oh show. So if you are new to the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game and you don't know what Xyz summoning is, basically what you do in order to summon an Xyz monster, you basically have to take two monsters with the save level and overlay them, which that's what they call in the anime. You basically overlay the two monsters to summon an Xyz monster. And basically what the whole gimmick of Xyz monsters work is that the monsters you use to summon the monster don't get destroyed. They don't get sent to the graveyard. Basically, what ends up happening is that the monsters attach to the Xyz monster as Xyz materials, or known in the anime as overlay units. And basically, what this does is it grants these Xyz monsters very strong abilities. And I don't think Shark ends up using this Xyz monster's effect, which, by the way, if you want to know this monster's effect, basically what this effect of the monster, which the name of the monster is Submersible Carrier Air Shark, is basically you can detach an Xyz material from this card, and you can deal, I think it's 300 points of damage to your opponent for every card in your hand. I don't think it showed any cards in his hand, so the effect didn't really, wouldn't actually do anything, but it really didn't matter, as with its 1900 attack points, it was able to beat the Tetsu and basically win Shark the duel without even losing a single life point. So right off the bat, they make Shark to be a very strong duelist. And you can see it by the fact that Tetsu didn't even deal 1 point of damage to Shark. And what ends up happening is just, geez, you gotta feel bad for Yuma and Tetsu in this whole entire scene, as you see Shark basically walk up to Tetsu and takes his deck, and Yuma gets infuriated by this, and he basically decides to go and confront him and basically ask him, why in the world are you doing this? Why are you taking Tetsu's deck? And Shark basically explains to him that they basically put up their decks on the line. Whoever wins the duel, the other person is forced to give up their deck. And Tetsu basically agrees with this, saying that was the case. But the reason Tetsu even decided to duel with this, because it kind of seems very stupid to actually risk your deck in a duel. He basically said that Shark called him a weak duelist and that he was never going to be a skilled duelist, and that infuriated Tetsu, and he decided that it would be good to put him in his place and actually defeat him in a duel. Obviously, he got completely destroyed. And Yuma kind of gets infuriated about this. He basically starts to get in an argument about Shark basically saying that a deck is a part of a character or a person's soul, and taking away his deck is unnecessary. There's no reason to do that. And he basically starts to go on how he wants to become a duel champion, and seeing stuff like this is just unacceptable. And this infuriates Shark, because the fact that this kid is saying that he wants to become a duel champion, talking to a guy who actually made it to nationals, kind of started to build a fire in him. And he basically says, you know what? Since you're so confident, how about this? I'll let you try to get Tetsu's deck back. However, you have to put something up as equally important in order to challenge me in a duel. And Yuma kind of thinks about this a little bit. It's like, something important. What is something important that I should put up on the line? And Shark ends up looking at the pendant on his neck, and basically takes the pendant off of his neck, and his two goons, which weren't ever named, by the way, end up grabbing Yuma, and he starts kind of talking to Yuma, kind of making fun of him, drops the pendant on the ground, stomps on it, and breaks the pendant and basically in half, and kicks one of the pieces into the bushes, which, by the way, does that scene to anyone remind you back in Duel Monsters when Joey ended up throwing the piece of the Millennium Puzzle into that little ravine? Does anyone remember that from Duel Monsters? And did anyone get a similarity between those two scenes? I don't know if that's just me, but the characters being bullies, remember Joey and Tristan, or Jinochi and Honda in the subversion, were bullies to Yuma or to Yugi, and that's when Jinochi ended up throwing one of the pieces into that little creek little area. I don't remember where it was at. And basically Shark did the exact same thing. And geez, they really made Shark to be a complete a-hole in this first episode, which I do like. I do like that we kind of have an a-hole kind of character, and Yuma gets infuriated about this. He's about to go and punch Shark in the face. However, Tetsu ends up stopping him, and then Shark basically says, now that your pendant is broken, now this is how it's going to go. You can still challenge me for Tetsu's deck back. However, if I beat you in this duel, you are going to give me your deck. And Yuma kind of gets shocked by this. He basically tells him to meet him at the center of the mall, and basically him and his two goons walk away. And Yuma is basically in complete distress about this because of what basically just happened. And you actually see a scene where he actually goes back into the dream for some reason. I don't know why he went back into the dream, him. But basically, the door asks him the exact same question he did a little while ago in the episode, but Yuma doesn't have the confidence to do this because of his pendant being destroyed. And this is where I like the symbolism of this, because remember, that pendant represent basically his courage, and with that pendant being destroyed, that basically lost all of his courage. And you gotta kind of feel bad for Yuma at this point, because he's not taking any of the challenges at the school. He was challenged to do the whole swimming underwater again, but Yuma basically denies that. Katori asks him if he wants to do the hurdles again, however he denies it, and you kind of see him just down in the dumps about the whole entire situation. And as they're walking back home from school, Tetsu ends up running into them, and Tetsu basically says, "Yuma, do not participate in this duel. You know, I appreciate you wanting to get my deck back, however, Shark is a very powerful duelist. You can't even beat me in a duel, so how in the world do you think you're going to be able to beat Shark, who made it to the Nationals in a duel? Just forget about it. Don't try to go and duel Shark. I'll find a way to get my deck back somehow." And Yuma basically tells him, "No, I am not going to hold back from this duel." And this is one of my favorite moments from this episode, was that Yuma basically tells him, "You know what? I don't really care about getting back your deck," which honestly he does care about getting back his deck, but this is more personal to him now, because he literally took the pendant off of his neck and crushed it right in front of his eyes. Something that was very important to him, that his parents gave him, and that infuriated him to the point where, you know what? Even though, yeah, I wanted to get your deck back, that was the whole reason why he got in the argument with him. Now things became more personal. So, more so, although, yeah, I want to get your deck back, it's not my main focus. I want to give payback to the guy that basically crushed something that was very important to me right in front of my face. And Tetsu was surprised by this, because he thought he was still fighting for his deck, but he realized that, yeah, Yuma does have a little bit more personal bias to Shark now. And Tetsu says, "You know what? Go ahead and do what you want. If you want to duel Shark and get beaten and lose your deck, go ahead." And tosses him back the broken piece of the pendant. This kid literally went and searched for the broken pendant, which, by the way, love the symbolism of this as well. It's literally what Jinochi did back in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, when he went and retrieved back the last piece of the Millennium Puzzle and gave it back to Yugi. That's literally what this whole scene was in Zexal. Tetsu going out to try to find the broken piece of the pendant and give it back to Yuma. So really did love that scene. Yuma and Katori end up walking home. We see a little bit of a mini montage of Yuma looking through his deck. Basically, the deck that his father used, so we know his father is actually a duelist, and he's going to use this deck to duel against Shark, and he's trying to like study his cards, try to figure out what they do. And this is where you're kind of going to see Yuma as a duelist, which is another thing that a lot of people don't like about Yuma, and the fact that he's not a very powerful duelist. Now, I will say this. It's nice to have a protagonist that's not strong right off the bat. I do appreciate that. However, Yuma's just dumb. I mean, when we actually get into the scene of the duel, which, by the way, the start of the duel was, I actually did like the starting part of this duel. I thought it was a good first part of this duel, which, yes, this is a two-part duel. I think this is the first time in the show where it currently was at, from the airing of Duel Monsters to Zexal, where we actually had a duel that did not conclude. You know, back in Vrains, we didn't even have a duel to start off with, so that was a different scenario. And I think the Arc 5 duel was a two-parter duel when Yuya faced a sledgehammer. I think that was a part 2 duel. I might be wrong about that. No, it was a two-part duel, because that episode ended off with Yuya summoning Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and 2 other monsters, and that's how that episode ended. So this was actually a cliffhanger episode as well, and we kind of start seeing that trend going forward until Sevens, where Sevens actually had a completed duel. And basically this duel, Shark dominated the entire duel. I mean, he was able to overpower Yuma at every necessary point by using Big Jaws and his equipped spell Aqua Jet to be able to get over Zubama Knights, using Zeus's breath to negate Gagaga Magician's attack, Gagaga Magician's attack, while equipped with Wonder Wand, which would have been able to destroy his Big Jaws, and basically took complete control of the duel. And then you kind of have a little banter between Shark and Yuma. Yuma has a great line before he then pulls out the pendant off of his neck, and you see the thing just start glowing again. And basically the whole entire pendant becomes combined again, and seemingly out of nowhere, which was very weird. And he sees the door again. The door is literally in his face again, and basically asks him the question, do you want to take this risk? Do you want to gain this new power? And Yuma, with the fullest of confidence, decides, yes, I'm going to bring it to them. I'm going to gain this new power, and shams the pendant into the keyhole, which I guess was the key for this door, is able to open the door, and this is where everything starts to change. As when Yuma opens the door, you see this weird-looking character flying right in front of Yuma's face before he gets into this little sphere-looking thing with a whole bunch of cards before the cards basically disband from him, and he's basically back in the real world. So basically, it seemed like he teleported to this world again, which is the third time it happened in this episode, and he seemingly released something, and everything just went downhill from there, as Shark acted really weird in this episode during the end parts of this duel. And you basically see him overlay his two monsters again to summon an Xyz monster, and at first you think, oh, he's going to summon the same monster against Tetsu. However, he ends up summoning number 17 Leviathan Dragon, the first number monster that we see in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, excuse me. And this shocks everyone. Tetsu is a little bit shocked by this. He's never seen a monster like this before. He's able to use number 17 Leviathan Dragon's effect, which allowed it to gain 500 attack points by detaching an overlay unit, and is able to destroy Gaga Magician, deals a good amount of damage to Yuma before Yuma gets knocked back in his back, and he basically is contemplating, how in the world am I going to be able to beat this thing? Like, he is terrified by this, but the weird looking character that flew right in front of his face is standing right next to him, seemingly out of nowhere, and basically tells him, get up and keep on dueling. And Yuma is surprised on this, and this is how they end the episode. Great way to end the episode off. A lot of stuff happened. What is this number monster? Who is this floating looking blue character? Who the heck is he? And who is going to win this duel? I mean, it seems right now that Yuma is going into this next episode with a very severe disadvantage. Now he has to deal against this Xyz monster, this very powerful looking monster, and now he has to try to overcome this. So very excited to see what the next episode is going to bring. But guys, with all that being said, that is going to be it for the first episode of Yugioh Zexal. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of the first episode of Yugioh Zexal. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not like the episode at all? And before I end off this video, I want to kind of mention how this Yugioh Zexal review series is going to work. For the time being, there is not going to be a set schedule of when I do a Yugioh Zexal review. I'm just going to be doing it whenever I have the chance. There is a good chance that you might get a Zexal episode once a week, twice a week, heck, maybe even 3 times a week. Who really knows? But my main goal for this series is that I actually want to try to catch this up where we're currently at Yugioh 7s. Currently, right now, we're at episode 53. Next Saturday, or this upcoming Saturday, will be episode 54. So my main goal is to try to catch up to where we're currently at Yugioh 7s. And yes, the Yugioh 7 episodes are going to be growing. That's why there's going to be a good chance of where you can see multiple episode reviews a week. Probably not this week because of the fact that I do have a lot of things planned. So there might not be a chance to do another Yugioh Zexal review at any point in the future, but I will be trying to do multiple Zexal reviews a week. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But guys, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.